So you have a couple books to share with us today.
Yes, I have 5 books, 5 spooky books to share with you. They're going to be perfect for getting into the Halloween feeling.
I love that.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Michelle with the Goffstown Public Library, where I'm an adult services librarian. Welcome and welcome back to our library for Book Talk with Michelle. I'm so pleased to welcome Kat today. She's my friend and bookseller who's here to share with us a couple of books. Kat, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, my name is Kat. I am the events coordinator for a small chain of independent bookstores in southern New Hampshire. And I take indie book selling very seriously. It's my favorite thing in the world. I read a lot for my job. I read publications that aren't out yet. I read audiobooks, a lot of audiobooks. I do a lot of driving.
Yeah.
I read kids books. I read adult books. My favorite genres are horror and kind of magical realism. A little bit of sci-fi sometimes, and I also love reading nonfiction. And I, as you can tell, am an aficionado of all things spooky. So the first book that I'd like to talk about is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. Alexis Henderson is a young writer. This is her debut novel. She went to school here in New England.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's a real local feeling too throughout the entire book. Feels like this could happen in New England.
I love that. Reading books that are set where you live gives it just an extra layer
really does
of ambience.
Yeah. And we live in New England. It's the perfect time for spooky things in New England. So Alexis Henderson's Year of the Witching takes place in this puritanical society. We know that it's biblical. We don't know if it's Christian. They never really mention Jesus or anything, but they definitely mention the Old Testament a lot.
Okay.
Very patriarchal, very puritanical, which is why it conjures up feelings of New England in a rural society. It's this great big sort of city-state that has a wall around it. You have to leave the city to go to the rest of the world. And this young woman is growing up. Her name is Emmanuel. Emmanuel is a mixed-raced woman in a society that values whiteness and degrades blackness. So already she's kind of caught in the middle of these two worlds. She's a woman caught in the middle of these two worlds. She is trying really hard to just be a good granddaughter. She's trying to work on her family's farm, take care of herself and stay out of the way. But of course, nothing ever goes the way we plan.
Why would it?
And she gets sucked into the magic of these woods that are right outside of her village. And the magic of the woods is where kind of everything falls apart. What I loved about this book is that it discusses not only the power of women and femininity in a society where that is degraded and devalued, but it also empowers this idea that you can be great no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter your origins. Discrimination is wrong against women, against people of other races. Just loved it. Really spoke to me as a story about the witch as an archetype, the witch as somebody powerful who fits outside of these roles that we create for women. Emmanuel really fits outside of all of these roles that are created for women in her home society. So
that's cool. So you're seeing a really positive representation of witches. Is that the spooky aspect of it?
There is a spooky aspect of it. There's also bad witches, though, because just like there are good witches, there's bad witches. It's a yin and yang situation. New England has a really troubled history with witches and the way that we talk about witches, both in fiction and in real life. Real problem with the way that we address women and other races and other cultures historically. And I think that this book really shows you can be whoever you want to be. You can be powerful, even if you're not in a position of power. And I loved that. So the second book that I would like to recommend for spooky season is Bunny by Mona Awad.
You love this book.
I love this book. I have not shut up about this book since before this book came out.
It's true.
Bunny, again, a New England-based writer. She's not from New England, but she lives in Boston now. She wrote about this small college in Providence. So this story is about an MFA student at this college in Providence who is struggling with writer's block. She can't seem to get past what's going wrong. She can't seem to look deeper into herself. Her professors are all like, all right, well, the technicality is there, but you have to put yourself into it. And either she can't or she won't do that. During her time at this MFA, she really doesn't have any friends. And she gets drawn into this one group of other students who are in her program that she calls the bunnies. And the bunnies are like the Heathers meet the plastics meet something entirely more saccharine and disgusting.
Okay.
The bunnies are these 4 girls who are all so soft and sickly cute, like sickly sweet. Just, Bunny, I missed you, Bunny. I haven't seen you since last night, Bunny. How are you, Bunny? Every other word out of their mouth is Bunny. Everybody is Bunny. Everything is Bunny. And they're just so nice to each other. And so they meet outside of class to work on their writing. And they invite the main character, Samantha, to come with them. And Samantha goes, and she starts to see the work that they're doing isn't necessarily schoolwork. They're creating something else entirely.
Okay.
So this story is a grown-up fairy tale. It's got all the elements of a Grimm's tale, but it's also a retelling of Frankenstein. But it's also a fable about how you have to do the inner work to do the outer work. It's so many things at once.
Yeah.
It's very atmospheric. It's very spooky. Anybody who likes magical realism or who likes to dip their toes into horror but doesn't like gore, doesn't like, violent scenes, this would be great for anybody that's like, I kind of want to try horror, but I only want like the hint of horror. I want this book to be on a shelf with another horror book and have kind of, through osmosis, picked that up. Baby steps. Very, very cool. Loved this book.
I've heard you describe it before, correct me if I'm wrong, as the Heathers meets the vegetarian.
Yeah, that's how it was marketed too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of truth to that.
Okay.
I think though that to compare it and say it's just like this other thing is false, because this book is just so unique.
Genre defying.
Genre defying. Thank you. Those are the words exactly that I need. This book blew my mind wide open. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. The next book I want to talk about is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado.
Yeah.
Her Body and Other Parties is a collection of short stories that are surreal. They're not horror, but they are grotesque. They're not sci-fi, but they are fantastic. Mm-hmm. They're not literary, but they are literary. Her Body and Other Parties opens with the titular short story, which is a grown-up version of The Girl with the Green Ribbon from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Oh, cool.
So everybody knows the story. There's a girl with a green ribbon around her neck. She lives her whole life with this ribbon around her neck. Her husband asks, "Oh, baby, why do you wear that ribbon around your neck?" And she goes, "Don't worry about it." And eventually they remove the ribbon and her head falls off when she dies. This book is a play on that idea, and from there all of these stories have kind of grown out of it and morphed out of it. Stories about queer women, stories about women of color, stories about women in tough situations, stories about women finding their own liberation. Mm-hmm. Women are the focus of this book, and that's what I really, really loved about it. Carmen Maria Machado is a phenomenal writer. If you haven't also picked up her memoir, In the Dream House, you should.
Oh yeah, that was really well received last year.
Really well received, and I haven't read the whole thing. I read bits and pieces when there was an arc kicking around at work. Her writing is exemplary. Mm-hmm. It really, truly is. There's a certain kind of magic to everything that she puts down pen to paper, and I think that Her Body and Other Parties really shines. She's just got lots of irons in the fire, and she is cooking the best dang meal.
That's a good metaphor.
Oh boy.
Is this like borderline absurd?
I would say slightly absurdist, more surreal than absurd.
Okay.
It's not too lofty. It's not going to go over your head.
That's nice. But
it might be very strange and uncomfortable. So if you don't vibe with the first story in the book, maybe don't read the rest of it, because they're all a little crooked.
A little crooked.
A little crooked.
Good description.
The next book that I want to talk about is actually a young adult novel. It's called Foul is Fair, and it is a retelling of Macbeth, because I love the Bard and I love Macbeth. I love Macbeth. In this, the book is focused not on Macbeth himself, but on Lady Macbeth, the Lady Macbeth character. Mm-hmm. Takes place in a California private school called St. Andrews, which of course it is. And Lady Macbeth is the main character. Her name is Jade. She is attacked at a party to start off.
Yeah.
And she realizes that it was the St. Andrews lacrosse team that was behind it. So she decides she's going to get revenge. And much like Shakespeare's work, she makes somebody else do her dirty work for her. She finds Macbeth. and she makes Macbeth do all of her dirty work. Meanwhile, she's also having her own descent into madness while Macbeth is tortured about what he's doing. It's awesome. I loved it. Again, a very strong female main character who isn't likable.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
She's not likable, and that's what I loved about this book. She is unconventional. She is out for blood, and God, she gets it.
So for older teens.
Definitely for older teens.
Yeah.
Older teens, adults too, if you're looking for just, I read Macbeth in high school, I want something kind of freaky, but I don't want to slog through like something big and grandiose. Pick up Foul is Fair. It's bloody. It's got like Sopranos undertones. I loved it.
Oh, okay.
Couldn't put it down. I don't think anybody else got the Sopranos undertones, but that's what I've been doing in quarantine, has been watching The Sopranos from season 1 all the way through to the end. Came out this February. It is still in hardcover. It will be out in paperback probably this coming February. It's got a bright yellow cover too. The cover doesn't look anything like the inside of the book. But then again, Jade is not at all what she appears to be to all the kids at St. Andrews. So...
Is there a content warning with that one?
Content warning, yep. The content warning for Foul is Fair, for sexual violence, and for gore. It does talk about some rather difficult things, not in great detail, but enough that, you know, if you feel like it might be unsettling, better skip it. There's plenty of other great YA out there.
Definitely.
The last book that I want to talk about is a nonfiction book by Caitlin Doughty, who I love. You might know her Ask a Mortician series on YouTube.
So good.
I love Ask a Mortician. She's so cool.
She just did one on the difference between coffins and caskets.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, there's a lot out there from her.
And it doesn't sound like it would be interesting, but like it really is. There's so much. Oh, it's very cool. Caitlin Doughty is a holistic death professional, is how I would describe her.
Yeah.
She has the Order of the Good Death. That is her funeral service. And she's focused on, you know, giving family members who are grieving a loss the kind of balance and closure they need, the involvement that they want. She's focused on green burials and making sure that, you know, big funeral doesn't have their final say in everything. That's where this book comes in. From Here to Eternity, it is her world journey to find what she calls the good death. So it's an exploration of death culture in the United States, an exploration of death culture in other cultures. There's mentions of death culture in Bolivia, death culture in Mexico, death culture in Japan, the way that people approach funerals, the way that people approach loss, revolutions in death care.
Okay, yeah.
For lack of a better term. Writing about how different we mourn versus other cultures, how revolutionary it can be to be with the body of your loved one. So what I really enjoy about Caitlin Doughty's writing is that she feels like she's talking to you. It feels very conversational, but without being condescending. She will explain difficult concepts about, you know, the way the funeral industry works or the way that bodies rot. She will explain all of these things in a way that is, you know, very adult, but also doesn't make you feel stupid for sitting there reading, oh, well, how does this chemical work? You don't have to worry about it. She'll tell you. Just like her YouTube videos, her personality really shines through, and she's getting her footing as a writer with this book. She followed that book up with last year's release, Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs, which is her answering children's question about death. Like, can my grandma have a Viking funeral? What would happen to an astronaut if his spacesuit opened and he was outside of the shuttle?
All important questions.
All important questions that children have about death.
Did she do the research on location at those different countries, in those different cultures, or is it more secondhand?
No, so she actually travels. Caitlin was lucky enough to travel with colleagues and other death professionals to see a lot of these really interesting ceremonies, a lot of these really interesting rituals. She visits all of these cultures and she speaks with a lot of different people. She's very fortunate to meet so many wonderful people that are just as much characters in her book as she is. Everything is written with a lot of respect and a lot of dignity for the dead and for their families. Could not get enough of it. I must have read that in 2 sittings.
Oh, that sounds like a great recommendation.
Thank you.
Those were 5 spooky titles.
Those were 5 perfect spooky titles to get you ready for Halloween.
Yeah, I think those
excited.
Are super great. We had, you know, women empowerment and different representation. What else do we have?
We talked about magic. We talked about madness. Oh my God, all the things that make Halloween great is just losing your mind and then casting spells on people, right?
That's what we're all here for this season. So what are you reading for this Halloween season? You can definitely leave it in the comments. Kat and I will be watching. We respond to your comments. We'd love to hear your recommendations because we're both really big readers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know that our audience also enjoys all the great things that you have to read. Like and share this video if you got something out of it, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm here every week with adult book talks, but this channel also has teen book talks as well as crafts and how-tos, plus so much more. Like I said, I'll be back next week for another episode of Book Talk with Michelle, but in the meantime, you can connect with the Goffstown Public Library on social media, or you can visit goffstownlibrary.com to see what's in the catalog yourself. Again, I'm Michelle with the Goffstown Public Library.
And I'm Kat, bookseller. And we'll check you out later.
Bye.